Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Red Bra Project, Woman Crush Wednesday. We are so excited for our guest tonight. But before we introduce her, I want to say hello to my beautiful co host, Renee. How are
Hello.
you doing tonight? Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, that's okay. I'm doing great. It's awesome to see you as always. I feel like we just left here. Like that's how fast the week's been.
Yeah, they've been flying by. So even in COVID, I feel like somehow we're like flying through October, which is good and bad. I think we're all anxious to get to 2021, but we don't know what that's going to be. So maybe if time could slow down just a tad,
We'll just
it'd be
take
good
it day
for
by
us.
day. Yeah. Speaking of which, so this is a little pumpkin. This is our mood pumpkin. So we
I
decided
love
it could
it.
be a happy day or maybe a rough day.
All right. Well, I know with this episode, we should keep it on that smile because I think we have a lot of good things coming to us tonight for episode 63. And I'm so excited to introduce our guest, Shabnam Samuel.
Hi,
Hello. Sorry, I can't see everyone. My Zoom is crazy. I'll just say that now, but welcome.
thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thrilled, actually.
Oh, thrilled. Well, we're so excited to have you. And if you can just give us a little bit of your background and tell us a little bit about you. You came as a recommendation from one of our former guests, Jen Myers, and we're so grateful whenever our Red Bra guests recommend friends to us. So if you can start there, not with Jen, but just your background, that'd be really great.
I guess I'm here today as a writer, as an author, but I was an internal writer and an internal author, and I didn't I published my book 2 years ago, and that was almost 5 decades into my life. So I've had a life before. My background is in advertising and marketing. I did my master's from India, and we moved here to the United States about 33 years ago. Um, and I could never get back into the advertising world here, which was a disappointment. But I created a different life. And about 3 or 4 years ago, the thought of writing a book came about, and that's how I wrote my first book, a memoir. And that's who I am.
I love it. And I mean, writing is so therapeutic at times. Is that really what made you start writing? Just to get everything out, or?
Well, I've always been a writer, but that was not encouraged in the years that I was growing up. It's like, no, you got to be something in the sciences or you got to be a lawyer. Writing doesn't take you anywhere. But I've always written essays and little stories, and but I never thought about a book because life took a whole different turn, and it was all in there, but I never did write till 3 years ago, like a formal writing.
Wow. And you said that it took, you know, 5 decades for you to kind of fall into where you are right now. And I know that your memoir is incredible. We can't wait to read it. But that sounds like it really kind of was such a breakthrough for you up until that point. I mean, I guess talk to us a little bit about your memoir because that's it's not like you started with nonfiction or something that you wanted to share or something that you learned. You started with your life story, and so that had to be a really important decision. So what made you choose to go that route?
So, I have a tagline which I kind of introduced myself with. So, I wrote to prove that I exist. That was my main intention in writing, because all my life I was kind of in the background, in the shadows. Um, as you can tell, I'm from India. I'm from Southeast Asia, and there are certain subjects and certain topics that are absolutely taboo in India when we were growing up. Like my parents divorced in the 60s, and nobody talked about it because that wasn't accepted. I was raised by my maternal grandparents, and nobody really knew who my parents were because nobody talked about it. So that's why I say I write to prove that I exist because, growing up, If people asked me, what's your dad's name? What's your mom's name? There would be silence on my face because it was already ingrained in me that you don't say these things outside of the house. So that is how I came about writing and, telling my stories or trying to silence the silence with my words.
Wow. I can't even imagine. And just, I mean, and when we do a questionnaire for those that haven't watched before, and when I read your notes, just, describing how you felt like you have to prove your existence. That's so heavy and so huge. Talk to us a little bit about, I guess, growing up. And I mean, you said that you had to be silenced. I mean, what were the steps that made you said you were internally always writing. So how were you kind of coping with this through those moments and having self-worth, I guess, is the question there.
Self-worth, I didn't have any. So when you read if you read my book, you'll
Oh, I will.
what I talk about. So I grew up, and I don't want to. I grew up with my grandparents, my mother's parents. I grew up in a biracial home. My grandfather is Indian, but my grandmother is from Assyria, it's not Syria, it is Assyria, Assyria. And she was a victim of the genocide, the Assyrian genocide in 1914. So she somehow, from their home in Assyria, which was on top of Iran in those days, she found herself in Russia, and which was the former Soviet Union. And then from the Soviet Union, because of all that was going on, the genocide and the First World War, they walked all the way down to Iraq, to Baghdad, where the British had their Red Cross refugee camp. So that's where she came to. She must have been about 13 or 14. And my grandfather was fighting as a soldier in the British Army because the British ruled India in those days. And so they met at the Red Cross camp in Baghdad. He spoke English, she didn't speak English. But anyway, eventually they got married and came to India. So they raised me. So I grew up, I don't want to say in the lap of luxury, but I had what I needed. But then I didn't have the important ingredients that forms you as a human being, in the sense, a dad, a mom, siblings, the whole unit that kind of forms our personality. I didn't have all of that. And I knew the difference because I saw my cousins. We were 21 cousins and we were all very close. Yeah, my grandparents had 7 kids. Their kids, we were 21 of us. So I would say the difference, they had parents, I didn't have parents. Then in school, people would ask me, why are your parents so old? But I couldn't tell them, okay, these are my grandparents. So all of that I kept inside of me. Um, so I didn't really write anything then, but my stories were inside of me. I started writing, putting my thoughts together very late in life, like I would say about 10 years ago. Um, and I used to write little notes, and I actually wrote them on Facebook because I didn't want anybody, Facebook has that notes section. So I would push everything in there and just keep it for myself and not share it. So that became like my diary. And so when my book came about from those chapters, actually.
Wow.
So.
Oh, that's so cool to hear about your process and kind of storing your mental notes up here and getting them out and then putting them into your memoir. Such a beautiful, but I'm sure painful at time process. How did you feel when you finally were done and it was published on the shelves and people were reading it? How did you feel?
So, I have to give credit for my memoir to my grandfather, my mother's father. When I turned 6 years old, he started writing letters to me every day. I would see him write, but he wouldn't share it with me. Obviously, I was just 6 and you're not. But when he passed away, he left all those notebooks, we call them in India. They were like bound notebooks. He had left all of that for me. So he literally because nobody talked about who I was, who my dad was, what happened. It was all there in those books. So I took a lot of my stories from, and of course I remembered incidents, as soon as I got older, I knew this and that, but they were all there. So when I started writing my memoir, um, memoir is something they say it's your vision of the world. You and I might have grown up in the same household, but the way I saw things, the way you saw things is going to be two different opinions. And somebody might say, oh, that wasn't true. But lucky me, I had my grandfather's books with me, and I'm like, okay, if you think this isn't true, look here. So that's what happened, and that's how I based my memoir on his writings also.
What an incredible gift. I started to tear up as you said that. I can't imagine receiving something like that. Just the intentional writing a letter every day and
every day. Yeah, and actually the book has a copy. My book has some pictures in it. And I think if you go to my website, you can see also, there's a page that I've taken a picture of with his handwriting and what he, so yeah, that was an incredible gift.
Wow.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just wowing. Go ahead.
When you decided to write this, was it mostly just to get it out and so that you could feel some sense of relief of telling your story, or was your goal also to help other women who might have felt silenced like you did, or men or women?
Both, actually, both. So, I always thought I left India to come here. I was married in India, and my son was 3 when we moved here. So I always felt okay. So I was married. I've been married twice with my first husband, who's my son's father. We got married in India, but my marriage fell apart in the second month or third month itself, and I knew it wasn't going to work. So for me, it was coming to America was an escape, because in India you can't. I didn't want history to repeat itself. Like my mother got divorced, now she's divorced, and I had nowhere to go, nowhere to hide, didn't have a job. So I came here thinking that I'm coming to America. Okay, this is the land of freedom. I can do whatever I want to do and gain some independence. It never happened. It took me 30 years to gain that independence. So when I thought about the book, I thought about, I know so many women like me, like my family, who I'm very close to, my cousins. They had no idea my marriage had fallen apart. They had no idea I was living separately. And so that was one thing that pushed me also, that, I know there are women like me. I've seen them, I know them. And so if I can do it at, I was 55 when I wrote the book. I'm like, if I can do it, there's hope for somebody, some young girl who's gotten herself into a marriage and can't get out of it because of society pressures. Maybe she will read this book and gain some sort of courage. So it's just not for Indians or for South Asians. It could be any girl anywhere who's stumbling with her self-worth or doesn't think she's good enough to do this or that. It might just give them some little hope somewhere. So those were two factors that I wanted to write for.
Shabnam, your strength behind your story and not giving up is so beautiful. And I think that you're talking about how you can reach out to girls who are going through things similar that you did, but also to young women and men who feel like they don't belong and they don't know where their voice is. Here you are 25, 30 years later because you didn't give up. So what would you say to somebody who feels like throwing the towel in right now?
Just never give up. You don't know the strength that you have inside of you. And I'm not saying I've been strong all along. I've had terrible breakdowns. I've had terrible moments of like, I don't want to do this anymore. But you have to. I mean, there's no other second path. I mean, you have to live for yourself. You have to think about who you are. And if you are not a full whole person, you can't do anything for anyone, be it your kid, be it anyone or friend, you can't be someone for them. So for me, giving up was never an option. I had my son. I might not have been the best mother while he was growing up because I had my whole lot of issues that I was dealing with. um, but you just can't give up. There is always a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's just not a cliched phrase. There is actually, there is.
I'm curious, how did you push through those fearful days though? The days where you hit those lows where you were like, I just don't want to anymore. It's not fair. This is what I've had to deal with. I watch other people. How do you push through that?
I don't know, and I'm not a religious person. Yes, I've been baptized, I've been confirmed, everything has been done with me, but I'm not religious. I'm very spiritual, and there is a force out there that'll help, that'll take you out of it. It may have taken me all these years. Maybe if I'd done something back 20 years ago, maybe I wouldn't have been who I am today. But there's no single thing that tells you that, okay, this is the way to go. It's just you have to trust yourself, um, believe in your gut, and just go with that, and just keep pushing through. I know it sounds repetitive when I say just keep pushing through, but you have to take that moment out and think about who you are and what you are and what you wanted out of life. And once that comes back into the picture, then you'll be fine.
And speaking about your kind of spiritual connection and force, you have a woman's retreat and kind of holistic and wellness and things like that. So talk to us a little bit about that, where it takes place, and what made you, well, I guess first of all, what made you decide to, I guess, become, the creator of this amazing retreat, and who's it for?
So it is a writer's retreat. It started out as a writer's retreat, and it's actually both for men and women. I've made some amazing men friends there, and who are so into all of this. And so it started about 6 years ago, when I got back into writing and creating and publishing essays. Um, so there are some major wonderful retreats that happen in the United States, and I've never been able to go to one because they're frightfully expensive. They're amazing, but frightfully expensive for somebody who works for a living, day in and day out. And then I thought about India. India is a land where we speak English. English is our official language, actually, because of the British. We have some amazing writers there. We have some amazing talent there. But there wasn't something like this that anybody was offering in India, where you could go away for 6 or 7 days and just focus on writing and not think of anything else. That doesn't happen so easily, because there's always, oh, I have mommy to look after, or I have my brother to feed, or, because India has that, we have that huge family settings, and we live for our society kind of a thing. So and it was some way of giving back to my land that I left and came here. So that was why I wanted to do it. And then we of course have meditation and yoga and everything else, creative writing classes and all of that. We do it once a year, because I work full time here, and I would love to do it every 3 months, but I can't. We hold it in what we call in India a hill station. It's up in the mountains, and it's far away from the madding crowd, literally. It's on a school campus, which has about 32 acres of green land all over, and trees and everything. And so yeah, we go away for 7 days. Our food is taken care of, laundry is taken care of, transport is taken care of. You just have to go there, show up, write, interact, share, and that's what we do.
That's fantastic. I'm in awe of all the things that you are able to do, and that this is coming from someone who really struggled with confidence. And so I just wonder, when was that pivot point for you, when you were like, no, I can do this and I believe in myself?
I think that pivot point came to me when I realized I really don't care what people think. I really, really don't care. I mean, not, the general public who was always there sitting to judge, especially when you come from how do I want to put this? So when we assimilate, we came to the United States, we do assimilate with, the general population, but at the same time, we're very cliquish. So our weekends were spent with fellow Indians, and that to not India at large. Every state in India has a different language, a different food culture, different clothes culture. So we stuck to the people from our state. So you can see that narrowed it down again. And you're always conscious of what that uncle is going to say or what that cousin is going to say. So, and then when I got to this point, I'm like, in my darkest moments, none of them came and stood by me. So who the heck should I care about? So that point, when I realized that, these people in the peripheral were not important at all, I just said, I don't want to use, sorry, heck with it. I'm just going to go and do whatever I want to do. So once you stop caring about other people's opinions, I think that's when your confidence comes back.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, the comparison thing is something that I mean, that's really what we built our platform on, was to stop comparing and really start celebrating each other, because we get so caught up in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
and like you said, to let go. I mean, sometimes you're going to have people that outwardly support you, and other times you're not. And it can be really hurtful if it's the people that are close to, or who you thought, were those close relationships. And I think that sometimes people try to figure out, well, what is it? I want to learn how to not care what others think and not to take it to heart so much. But it sounds like it was a mental awareness for you, and the light bulb went on, and it was just one of those things that
Right.
I can't spend my time and energy on this anymore.
And I think also it comes with age a little. When you're in your 30s and 20s, I remember being, oh my God, she has this, I want that. Oh my God, they had a party and I wasn't invited. All that happens when you're younger. Maybe not to everyone, it did happen with me. But as I grew older, I was like, no, I can write a book instead. I can read instead. I can, doodle instead. Why spend my energy here? So
Absolutely. I was talking to my 11-year-old this weekend about, the quality of friends versus quantity, but trying to have that conversation with somebody so young, when being popular is all that matters at that age.
And it's not just 11-year-olds. I've seen 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds who want to be the life of the party, and they want to be popular. And yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, what you're sharing is so inspiring to people listening. Number one, to find your voice and not give up, no matter how long it takes. Just keep working and discovering. And something that you've shared that a lot of our guests share is you've got to stop thinking about what everyone else is going to think of you once you do something. If it's on your heart and it's that little voice, sometimes you just got to do it and see what happens.
Absolutely. Yep. Very true.
I love that. So what is, I know we kind of asked you in the questionnaire, but how do you personally, I mean, I think this ties in with what we were just talking about, but how do you push through the fear? Is that where you just kind of shut down all the other voices and do what Shabnam wants to?
I think my perspective of that has changed over the years. And I don't want to sound morbid or, whatever. You start looking at the trajectory of your life and, what you've done and what you want to achieve. And then, even after I wrote the book, I've had some moments that I'm like, why does this keep happening? And all those whys that come back, and then you feel sorry for yourself. And then I say, do I want to sit here for 20 minutes or 2 hours crying about why? and I can go out and do something in those 2 hours. How many more days of sunshine do I have? Or, I just keep talking to myself and trying to motivate myself, because what other options do you have? I mean, you can sit there and cry about everything, but there's no point. There's absolutely no point. So I just do it. I don't know. Sometimes I really don't know how I do it, but I just do it.
You mentioned in some of our pre-discussion with you that you have a great sense of humor. Do you think that started because that was one way that you found, I'm going to protect myself too? Because I know there's a lot of times when we're going to tell the joke before somebody else can, but you ultimately become a really funny person from it. But do you think that's where that stemmed?
Yeah, it also stems from maybe wanting to be popular. Maybe wanting to be accepted. And how do you get accepted? If you want to be accepted as a doctor, you got to have a degree. If you want to be accepted as a lawyer, you need to, really argue well or talk well. So when you don't have any of those surrounding you, you find things to do. You find things to embellish, or you find things to cover yourself as a shield. And also it was to deflect a lot of attention from me, in the sense, I know I say I'm humorous, but at the same time, I'm trying to get it away from me, from people asking me those personal questions. Like, when we moved here 30 years ago, people didn't know my background, but these were same people who went to school with me, and they read the book now and they're like, oh my God, all that was happening with you and we never knew. So part of that was, trying to deflect attention from who I really was.
Sure.
And maybe, at such a young age and going through it all, what your mind could take and handle and all the emotions that came with it. Sometimes our mind protects us. So,
yeah,
that deflecting could have been a natural protection for you, your heart and your mind. And, now that you were ready to write about it. It was great timing. And I think that, I think it's awesome that you have found your tribe or your community to support you and kind of, support you and kind of raise you up, because you've spent all of this time looking for ways to fit in and feel good and share your voice. And now that you are, these people are coming out. I'm sure people have come out of everywhere after they read your book and things and reached out. And, that's part of sharing your story, is being able to share it with somebody who needed to hear it, because they may be going through something just as, intense as you did.
Absolutely. Yep. I remember 2 years ago, I flew down to Texas to speak at one of the South Asian domestic violence organization. And there was this young girl, she was in her 24, she must have been in her early 20s or late 20s, just sitting there and staring at me. And as soon as I saw her, I recognized the look in her eyes. I'm like, I've seen that in the mirror. I've seen those eyes before. And, she was smiling and whatever. And then afterwards, she came and sat with me and just poured her heart out. And she's like, I have nobody to talk to. My mother thinks I should stay in the marriage. And, so those are the kind of people that I want to reach out to. So even if it's one person.
Yeah. And I think that's so beautiful and so telling of your soul, because I think it would be really easy for you to be bitter. You didn't feel like you had these female presence in your life to help lift you and support you, but you see this greater purpose with your story to be able to help. And I think that's just really speaks to your character and what a good person you are.
Thank you.
I mean, the law of attraction too. I mean, you connected with this young woman and you put yourself out there, and now you're able to help those people who are able or who are looking, which is so cool.
Thank you.
So you wrote your memoir, which is a huge one to start with. What's the next writer's bug? Do you have something in the works? Are you?
Yeah, I have 2 books. I'm working on 2 books simultaneously. So the second one is kind of a second part of my memoir, because when I end my memoir, I do say that my next book will be about love.
Yeah.
So and that's one. And the other one that I'm working on is I'm combining about 10 or 12 essays, different stories of the Assyrian. This is a homage to my grandmother. So I found her tribe here also 2 years ago. So I'm gathering stories and compiling a book on Assyrian memoirs, because they have their stories of the genocide and everything, but those stories are disappearing as generations disappear. So I want to put all that together for the generation coming up. So those are the two things that I'm working on.
That's awesome. So cool. So I
Thank
know
you.
you have your writer's retreat, but if anybody wanted to connect with you for guidance on writing, is that something that you offer, or did you just chat with them?
Yes, I do. I actually teach also. I teach creative writing, um, teach, coach, whatever you want to call it. I do a lot of group classes and individual classes also. I work with a lot of local libraries here, who offer the classes for their patrons. So yeah, I have a website. It's shabnamsamuel.com. Um, Anybody can go there and connect with me through the website. You can send me an email, and I'll get the information and reach back out.
That's great.
And my writer's retreat website is also linked to my author website, so it's all up there on the shabnamsamuel.com.
So if we ask all of our guests this, but the Red Bra was founded on Renee and I talking about going to an event and needing that red bra because it gives you confidence, even if people can't see it.
Right.
But you have those moments in life where you've got it. Can you speak to maybe one moment where you know that you had that red bra confidence?
So for me, it was always about my son. I don't want to sound like a patriotic Indian mother or whatever mother, but it was always, even though I couldn't do the best for him that I should have, but he was always the focus. So when I started writing my book, I had all the chapters together, and I won a publishing deal. That's how my book came about, but that's for another day. So when I told him about it, and the book does talk about his dad, and the things that happened between us and all of that. So I asked my son, I said, how would you feel if, all this is going to be in a book about your dad? If you don't want me to do it, I won't publish it. So he was like, Mom, painters paint and something else, artists, something. He told me, and you're a writer, you just write. Don't worry about me. It is your story. You tell it how you want to tell it. Dad was my dad, but it doesn't mean anything. You are separate, he's separate. And so I that was my moment, that whatever happens in this world, he's my creation and he's standing by me. So all was good. That was my moment.
And I guarantee that you are a better mom than you're giving yourself credit for.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, that's a beautiful, I think that's so encouraging of both of you, that he was like, this is your story to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. We wrap every one of our shows with a special quote for our guests, and the one that we chose for you today was, our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Confucius.
That's a quote in my book. It's a Japanese quote that says, rise 7 times or fall 8 times and rise 8, fall 7 times and stand up 8. It's a Japanese proverb right in my book.
Oh my goodness.
So amazing.
I love it. That's so cool.
I know.
Renee, you said there's a reason for this quote today.
I mean,
Wow.
yeah, we read through our guests. We try and get to know our guests a little beforehand, and we take turns choosing, and it's what everyone speaks to us for our guests. So
That was amazing. What a connection.
Aww. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us. It's such an honor to have you as part of our Red Bra community and to highlight you on the Red Bra project.
Thank you so much for having me, Renee and Shauna.
Thank you. And where can our guests find your book?
It's on Amazon. You can find it there. There are Barnes and Nobles and any bookstore near you. But Amazon is, these days, Amazon, I guess, is the quickest way.
Sure. Great.
Safest.
Well, we will link. Yeah, we'll link all of that for everyone.
I appreciate it so much.
Absolutely. And for all of our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. And please share Shabnam's story with somebody who may need it in their life. As you heard her say, one story that touches just one other person is so worth telling and sharing. So we appreciate you so much. If you haven't subscribed to the Red Bra Project YouTube channel, just hit subscribe, head on over to our Instagram page. That's where all of the craziness happens. You can catch up with all of our guests and our episodes on the redbrawproject.com. Thank you guys all and have a wonderful night.